Ethan Caldwell stood alone in his Manhattan penthouse office, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the polished mahogany desk. At 38, he was a white American billionaire, whose name adorned skyscrapers and Forbes covers, a real estate tycoon who had clawed his way from a modest Queens childhood to the pinnacle of New York's elite. His tailored navy suit, crisp white shirt, and silver cufflinks spoke of wealth. But his clenched jaw and furrowed brow betrayed a wound that no money could heal. A single envelope on the desk before him, its gold-embellished edges gleaming like a taunt. The invitation inside bore the names Lillian Harper and Victor Langley, set to wed in 2 weeks at the plaza. Lillian, his ex-fiancée, was marrying his longtime business rival, and she had sent him an invitation. Ethan's fingers tightened around the card, the heavy stock crinkling under his grip. "This is low, even for you, Lillian," he muttered, his voice low and edged with bitterness. He tossed the invitation aside, watching it skid across the desk and teeter on the edge. Lillian had promised him forever 2 years ago, her blue eyes sparkling as they planned a future atop his empire. But she had left, claiming he loved his deals more than her, revealing that Ethan Caldwell was emotionally unavailable, married to his ambition. The headlines had stung, but her betrayal, choosing Victor, of all people, cut deeper. With his inherited wealth and smug charm, Victor Langley had been a thorn in Ethan's side since their first bidding war a decade ago. Now, Victor had won not just a contract, but the woman Ethan had once loved. He paced to the floor-to-ceiling windows, the New York City skyline sprawling before him, a testament to everything he had built from nothing. Skyscrapers he had designed, hotels he had financed, entire neighborhoods reshaped by his vision. Yet, none of it had been enough to keep Lillian. The invitation felt like a deliberate jab, a challenge to his pride. Was she mocking him, expecting him to slink away in defeat? Or worse, did she think he was still pining, too broken to face her happiness? Ethan's reflection stared back, his green eyes hard with resolve. He wouldn't give her the satisfaction of his absence. But going alone, looking like a man still nursing his wounds, was unthinkable. He needed a plan to show Lillian, Victor, and their glittering social circle that he had moved on. The intercom buzzed, breaking his reverie. "Mr. Caldwell, your 2 o'clock appointment has been canceled," his assistant Claire said through the speaker. "You're free for the afternoon." "Thank you, Claire," Ethan replied, his tone clipped. He grabbed his suit jacket from the leather chair and headed for the door. The office, with its sleek, minimalist decor and that damned invitation mocking him, felt suffocating. He needed air, a place to think where no one knew his name. The elevator whisked him down 50 floors, and soon he was striding through the lobby of Caldwell Enterprises, ignoring the deferential nods from staff. His driver, waiting by the black SUV, raised an eyebrow as Ethan waved him off. "I'm walking, Tom," he said, needing the city's rhythm to clear his head. He wandered, his polished loafers clicking against the pavement, until he found himself in Brooklyn, far from the Manhattan haunts where business associates or paparazzi might spot him. A small cafe on a quiet street caught his eye, its faded green awning and handwritten chalkboard menu promising simplicity. "The Daily Grind," the sign read. Ethan pushed open the door, the bell jingling softly. Inside, the air smelled of fresh coffee and warm pastries, and the handful of patrons, locals with laptops or books, paid him no mind. It was precisely what he needed. Anonymity. He slid into a corner booth, the worn vinyl creaking under his weight, and pulled out his phone, scrolling through emails to distract himself. A waitress approached, her footsteps light on the wooden floor. "Coffee. Black," Ethan said without looking up, his voice curt from habit. Bold choice, came a reply, warm and tinged with amusement. Bad day, or is plain coffee just your personality? Ethan's head snapped up, ready to dismiss the intrusion, but the words caught in his throat. The waitress was a black American woman, her dark skin glowing under the cafe's soft lights, her curly hair pulled into a loose bun. Her brown eyes sparkled with mischief, and her name tag read, Amara. She couldn't have been more than 30, her simple black apron tied over a white shirt and jeans, yet a quiet confidence in her posture held his attention. She wasn't polished like the socialites he knew, but her natural beauty and sharp wit disarmed him. Bad day, he admitted, surprised by his candor. Bad month. Amara's smile softened, but she didn't pry. Well, our blueberry scones are fresh from the oven. They've been known to fix a thing or two. She tilted her head, assessing him. Unless you're the type to stick to boring orders. The corner of Ethan's mouth twitched, a rare crack in his guarded demeanor. Add a scone, he said, leaning back in the booth. And make it quick, unless you want me to write a Yelp review about slow service. She laughed, a bright sound that cut through the fog of his mood. Oh, you're one of those customers. I'll keep that in mind, Mr. Fancy Suit. She turned toward the counter, her stride easy, leaving Ethan staring after her. For the first time all day, the weight of Lillian's invitation felt a little lighter. As Amara disappeared behind the counter, Ethan's gaze drifted back to his phone, but his mind lingered on her. Something about her, her ease, her refusal to be intimidated by his wealth or mood, felt like a lifeline. He didn't know her story, but he sensed a strength that mirrored his own, forged in a world that hadn't handed her anything. The idea forming in his head was reckless, maybe even absurd, but Ethan Caldwell hadn't built an empire by playing it safe. He needed a date to Lillian's wedding, someone who could hold her own in a room full of vipers, someone real. And something told him Amara Brooks might be the answer. The bell above the door of the Daily Grind jingled as Ethan Caldwell pushed it open, the familiar scent of coffee and warm pastries greeting him like an old friend. It was late morning, and the Brooklyn Cafe hummed with a quiet energy, locals typing at tables, a barista steaming milk behind the counter. Ethan's tailored suit felt out of place among the casual crowd, but he didn't care. After yesterday's encounter, something had pulled him back here, away from the polished chaos of Manhattan. The wedding invitation from Lillian Harper still burned in his mind, a wound he couldn't ignore, but the memory of Amara Brooks's sharp wit and warm smile lingered too, a spark in the haze of his frustration. He settled into the same corner booth, his eyes scanning for her. Amara emerged from the kitchen, balancing a tray of mugs, her curly hair tucked into a loose bun, her black apron slightly dusted with flour. She moved purposefully, delivering orders with a quick smile, but Ethan noticed a faint shadow under her eyes, a hint of exhaustion she masked well. When she spotted him, her expression flickered with surprise, then amusement. "Back so soon, Mr. Fancy Suit?" she said, approaching his table. "Don't tell me you're addicted to our scones already." "Coffee, black," Ethan replied, a faint smirk tugging at his lips. "And maybe a scone, since you're so proud of them." Predictably, Amara teased, jotting down the order. "You sure you don't want to branch out? We've got a lavender latte that might shake up your whole vibe." Ethan chuckled, a sound that felt foreign after weeks of tension. "I'll stick with what works. Bad days don't need extra complications." Amara's gaze softened, but she didn't push. "Fair enough. One boring coffee and a scone are coming up." As she turned to leave, Ethan surprised himself by speaking again. "Hey, when's your break? If you're not too busy insulting my taste, I could use some company." She raised an eyebrow, studying him as if weighing his intentions. "Bold move, assuming I want to spend 15 minutes listening to a stranger brood." But you're in luck. My break's in 10. Don't expect me to solve your problems, though. I'm better at pouring coffee than playing therapist. Ethan nodded, his smirk widening. Noted. I'll take what I can get. 10 minutes later, Amara slid into the booth across from him, a mug of tea in her hands and a blueberry scone on a plate between them. She broke off a piece, popping it into her mouth with a contented hum. "So," she said, leaning back, "what's got you hiding out in Brooklyn? You don't strike me as the type to slum it in cafes like this." Ethan hesitated, unused to such directness from someone outside his world. Most people in his orbit, business associates, socialites, tiptoed around him, their words laced with agendas. Amara's bluntness was refreshing, almost disarming. "Needed a break from the usual," he said, sipping his coffee. "Manhattan gets loud. Too many people want something from me." Amara nodded, her eyes sharp but kind. "I get that. People see a suit like yours and assume you've got the world on a string. But strings get heavy, don't they?" He blinked, caught off guard by her insight. "Yeah, heavier than you'd think." He paused, then added, "What about you? You don't seem like you belong behind a counter either." Her smile turned wry. "Oh, I belong here just fine. Pays the bills, mostly. But I've got bigger plans." She leaned forward, her voice warming. "I tutor kids at the community center down the street. Math, reading, whatever they need. Keeps me sane. Those kids, they're the real deal. No pretense. Just heart." Ethan tilted his head, intrigued. "You're a teacher?" "Not yet," Amara said, her tone tinged with resolve. "Got my education degree, but teaching jobs in this city barely cover rent, let alone my mom's medical bills. Heart surgery isn't cheap." She shrugged, but the weight in her words was clear. "So I sling coffee and tutor on the side. It's not glamorous, but it's mine." He nodded, something stirring in him, maybe admiration for her grit. "Sounds like you're carrying your strings." She laughed softly. "Guess we've got that in common then." Their conversation flowed easily, surprising Ethan with its warmth. He told her about growing up with a single mother who cleaned houses, a detail he rarely shared. Amara mirrored it with stories of her childhood, when she was raised by a nurse who worked nights to keep them afloat. For a moment, the gap between their worlds, his penthouse empire, her modest Brooklyn life, felt smaller, bridged by shared resilience. The moment was broken when a customer at a nearby table, a middle-aged man in a polo shirt, waved impatiently. "Miss, my coffee's cold," he called, his tone sharp. "Can you do your job and fix it?" Amara's smile tightened, but she stood smoothly. "Be right there, sir." As she reheated his coffee, Ethan caught the man muttering to his companion. "She's got an attitude, doesn't she?" Typical. The word carried a subtle edge, one Ethan recognized as a veiled jab at Amara's identity. His jaw clenched, but Amara returned to the man's table before he could act, her voice calm but firm. "Here's your coffee, sir. Piping hot. Anything else I can do for you?" The man flushed, mumbling a no, thanks before looking away. Amara slid back into the booth, her expression unreadable. "Sorry about that," she said, sipping her tea. "Some people think they can talk down to you when you're serving them." "You handled it better than I would have," Ethan said, his voice low with respect. "I'd have told him where to shove his coffee." She grinned, a spark returning to her eyes. "Tempting, but I need this job. Besides, I'm used to it. I'm used. You learn to pick your battles." Ethan leaned forward, his curiosity deepening. "You don't strike me as someone who backs down from much." She replied only when it was worth it. Her gaze met his. For a moment, the cafe's hum faded, and it was just them, Two people seeing each other. The air felt charged, like the prelude to something neither could name. The spell broke when Amara glanced at her watch. Break's over. Gotta get back to the grind. Literally. She stood, brushing crumbs from her apron. Don't be a stranger, fancy suit. Those scones won't eat themselves. Ethan watched her go, her words echoing in his mind. He hadn't come here looking for connection, only escape. But Amara had stirred something in him, a flicker of possibility. Lillian's wedding loomed, a challenge he couldn't ignore, and an idea was taking shape, wild and untested. He needed a date, someone who could hold her own against Lillian's world, someone real. Amara Brooks, with her quick wit and unyielding strength, might be the one to turn his plan into something extraordinary. The morning sun filtered through the smudged windows of the daily grind, casting a warm glow over the cafe's worn wooden tables. Ethan Caldwell sat in his now familiar corner booth, his tailored blazer draped over the seat, his crisp shirt sleeves rolled up as if to signal he wasn't entirely out of place in Brooklyn's casual hum. The weight of Lillian Harper's wedding invitation still pressed on him, a challenge he couldn't ignore. Yesterday's encounter with Amara Brooks, her sharp wit and quiet strength, had sparked a reckless but compelling idea. He sipped his black coffee, eyes scanning the counter where Amara moved with practiced ease, her black apron tied tightly, her curly hair pinned back. She hadn't noticed him yet, and he took the moment to steel himself for what he was about to propose. Amara approached, her tray balanced with empty mugs, her expression guarded but curious. She said you're making this a habit, fancy suit, setting the tray down and wiping her hands on her apron. Coffee again, or are you finally trying that lavender latte? Ethan smirked, leaning back. Coffee's fine. I don't need floral experiments to complicate my day. Suit yourself, she said, scribbling his order. But don't blame me when you're stuck in a rut. Her tone was playful, but her eyes held a flicker of fatigue, the same shadow he'd noticed yesterday. Before she could turn away, Ethan cleared his throat. Amara, wait. Got a minute? She glanced at the counter, where the morning rush had slowed, then back at him. Maybe one. What's up? He gestured to the seat across from him. Sit, please. I owe you an apology for that jerk yesterday. Amara's lips twitched, but she slid into the booth, crossing her arms. You don't owe me anything. I always deal with guys like that. Part of the job. Ethan said. Doesn't make it right. His voice low but firm. You shouldn't have to smile through that kind of nonsense. She studied him, her gaze sharp. Appreciated, but I'm guessing you didn't return to play White Knight. What's really on your mind? Ethan's pulse quickened. Her directness was both a challenge and an invitation. He leaned forward, choosing his words carefully. I need a favor. A big one. My ex-fiancée, Lillian, is marrying a guy I can't stand in 2 weeks. She sent me an invitation, a cruel jab or a test. I need to show up, but not alone. I need a date, someone who can handle that crowd. I want it to be you. Amara's eyebrows shot up, and a laugh escaped her, sharp and incredulous. Me? At some fancy wedding? You're joking, right? I'm dead serious, Ethan said, holding her gaze. One night, 6 hours max. You play my girlfriend, make it convincing. In return, I'll pay for your mother's heart surgery. All of it. Hospital, rehab, meds. 100 grand covered. The air between them shifted, heavy with the weight of his offer. Amara's smile vanished, her eyes narrowing. Let me get this straight. Can you buy me to play arm candy? I'm not for hire, Ethan. He winced, raising his hands. That came out wrong. It's not about buying you. It's a deal, an exchange. You help me save face, I help you with something tangible. You said yourself that the medical bills are crushing you. Amara's jaw tightened, and she leaned back, arms still crossed. You don't even know me. Why would you drop that kind of money on a stranger? Because you're not like them, Ethan said, his voice softening. Lillian's crowd. They're all fake smiles and hidden agendas. You're real, Amara. You'd walk in and own the room, not because of my money, but because of who you are. She scoffed, but her expression wavered, a mix of skepticism and curiosity. Flattery's cute, but this sounds like a harmful rom-com. What's the catch? You expect more than just a date? No catch, Ethan said firmly. It's one evening, pretending to be my girlfriend. No strings, no funny business. I'll have my lawyer draw up a contract to make it clear. Amara stared at him, her fingers tapping the table. A contract? You are from another planet. She paused, her gaze drifting to the counter, where a photo of her with a group of kids from the community center was pinned to a corkboard. Ethan followed her eyes, noting how her face softened at the sight. My mom's surgery is scheduled for next month, she said quietly. Insurance covers half, but the rest, I'm working doubles, and it's still not enough. Ethan nodded, sensing the crack in her resolve. I know it's a lot to ask, but this could solve that problem. Sure, you'd be helping me, but you'd be helping her more. She looked back at him, her eyes searching his. And what do you get out of it? Proving something to your ex? To yourself? He hesitated, her question cutting deeper than he expected. Both, maybe, he admitted. Lillian left me for my rival and told the world I cared more about work than her. If I show up alone, it's like admitting she was right. With you, I can show them I've moved on. Better. Amara's lips pressed into a thin line. So, I'm a prop to make you look good. No, Ethan said, leaning closer. You're a partner in this. Someone who can handle that world without losing themselves. I saw how you dealt with that guy yesterday. Calm, sharp, unshaken. You're exactly what I need. She shook her head, a wry smile breaking through. You're insane. You know that? Throwing around 100 grand like it's pocket change. She stood, smoothing her apron. I need to think about it. This isn't just about money. It's about walking into your world, and I know what that's like. People like me don't always come out unscathed. Ethan pulled a business card from his pocket and slid it across the table. Take your time. Call me if you decide. My offer stands. Amara took the card, her fingers brushing his for a fleeting moment. Don't hold your breath, fancy suit. She turned back to the counter, leaving Ethan with hope and unease. He watched her pour coffee for another customer, her movements steady, but her expression distant. He'd laid his cards on the table, but the decision was hers. And as he left the cafe, the bell jingling behind him, he couldn't shake the feeling that Amara Brooks held more than just his plan in her hands. She held a piece of his future he hadn't expected to wager. The hum of Brooklyn's evening traffic filtered through the open window of Amara Brooks's small apartment, where she stood, surrounded by a sea of designer gowns. A rack of shimmering fabrics, silks, satins, and velvets, crowded her living room, each dress more extravagant than anything she'd ever worn. Ethan Caldwell's stylist, a brisk woman named Elise, adjusted a sapphire gown on a hanger, her eyes appraising Amara with professional detachment. This one complements your frame, Elise said, holding up the dress. Try it on. Amara hesitated, her fingers grazing the fabric. The price tag, 5 figures, made her stomach lurch. This costs more than my rent for a year, she said, half to herself. She glanced at her mother, Nora, who sat on the couch with a cup of tea, her eyes bright with curiosity despite her recent hospital stay. "It's a loan, Amara," Ethan said, leaning against the doorway. He'd arrived an hour ago, his tailored blazer swapped for a more relaxed sweater, though his presence still filled the room, just for the night. "You don't have to keep it." Amara shot him a look, her lips quirking. "Easy for you to say, fancy suit. You're not the one stepping into a world where people judge you before you open your mouth." She turned to Elise. "Something simpler, please. I'm not trying to look like a chandelier." Elise nodded, pulling an emerald gown, sleek, floor-length, with minimal embellishment, from the rack. "This one's understated, but elegant. Try it." Ethan caught Nora's eye as Amara disappeared into her bedroom to change. "She's nervous," he said quietly. "I don't blame her. The plaza's a different beast." Nora smiled, her voice warm but firm. "My girl's tougher than she looks. She's faced worse than fancy folks with opinions. Just make sure you've got her back out there." "I will," Ethan promised, his tone earnest. He'd spent the past 3 days finalizing the contract for their deal. Amara's role as his fake girlfriend for Lillian's wedding in exchange for covering her mother's $100,000 heart surgery. The hospital had already scheduled Nora's procedure. A weight lifted from Amara's shoulders, but Ethan sensed her unease about entering his world. He couldn't shake the memory of her words in the café. "People like me don't always come out unscathed." Amara emerged, the emerald gown hugging her curves, its deep green hue glowing against her skin. Ethan's breath caught, and even Elise gave a rare nod of approval. "That's the one," Ethan said, his voice softer than intended. "You look incredible." Amara smoothed the fabric, her expression a mix of self-consciousness and defiance. "It's nice, but I'm still me. No dress changes that." She met his gaze. "So, what's the plan? We need a story if we're selling this fake romance." Ethan gestured to the couch, and they sat, Nora watching with quiet amusement. "We met at a charity gala 3 months ago," he began. "I was smitten and asked you out, and we've been exclusive since then." Simple, believable. Amara raised an eyebrow. "A gala? Really? Would your friends believe I was sipping champagne with the elite?" Ethan said they'd believe it because you'd make them, his confidence unwavering. "You've got this presence, Amara. You walked circles around that jerk at the cafe. This crowd's just a bigger stage." She snorted, but her eyes softened. "Flattery won't make me less nervous. Those people, they'll see me and assume I don't belong. I've dealt with that my whole life. The looks, the whispers, the where'd you come from vibes." Ethan leaned forward, his expression serious. "I know it won't be easy. Some of them are shallow and judgmental, but you're not there for them. You're there for me, and for your mom. And I'll be beside you, shutting down anyone who steps out of line." Nora chimed in, her voice steady. "He's right, baby. You've handled worse. Remember that parent at the community center who thought you couldn't teach her kid because you were too urban? You had her eating out of your hand by the end of the meeting." Amara's lips twitched into a smile. "Yeah, well, that was one person. This is a room full of Lillians." "Not all of them," Ethan said, "but enough. That's why I need you. Someone who won't bend to their nonsense." She nodded slowly, her resolve hardening. "Okay, let's practice. If I'm your girlfriend, we need to act natural. No awkward silences or fumbling when they ask how we fell in love." They spent the next hour rehearsing their backstory over Nora's homemade lemonade. Ethan shared just enough about Lillian, her charm, her betrayal, to prepare Amara without overwhelming her. Amara, in turn, described her tutoring sessions, her voice lighting up as she talked about a shy kid who'd mastered fractions after weeks of struggle. Ethan was captivated by her passion and how she saw the world, clearly, without pretense. As they practiced a mock dance for the wedding, Ethan took her hand, guiding her through a slow turn in the cramped living room. He said, "You'll need to dance at the plaza," his hand resting lightly on her waist, like this. Amara followed, her movements tentative but graceful. "I'm not precisely a ballroom pro," she admitted, stepping closer. Their eyes met, and the pretense felt real momentarily, the air charged with something unspoken. Her hand lingered in his, warm and steady, until she pulled back, clearing her throat. "Not bad, Caldwell. But don't expect me to waltz like Cinderella." He grinned, releasing her. "Wouldn't dream of it. You're better than Cinderella." Nora chuckled from the couch. "You two are already convincing. Don't forget the part where you're supposed to be faking it." Amara shot her mother a playful glare. "Thanks, Mom. Helpful." As Elise packed up the gowns, leaving the emerald one behind, Ethan handed Amara a folder with the contract. "It's all here," he said. 6 hours, 1 night, no strings. My lawyer's number is inside if you have questions." Amara flipped through the pages, her expression unreadable. "You're thorough, I'll give you that. But if I'm doing this, it's for my mom, not your ego. And I'm not changing who I am to fit in." "I wouldn't want you to," Ethan said, his voice low. "That's why it's you." She held his gaze, a flicker of trust breaking through her caution. "We'll see if you mean that when I call out some snob at your ex's wedding." He laughed, the sound easing the tension. "I'm counting on it." As Ethan left, the Brooklyn streetlights flickering on, he felt a strange mix of anticipation and nerves. Amara wasn't just a solution to his problem. She was a challenge, a wild card who could upend everything. The wedding was a week away, and with her by his side, he wasn't just facing Lillian's world. He was stepping into something new, something that might change him more than he'd planned. The grand ballroom of the plaza shimmered under crystal chandeliers, a vision of white and gold that screamed excess. Amara Brooks stepped out of Ethan Caldwell's limousine, the emerald gown clinging to her curves, her hair swept into an elegant updo that showcased her graceful neck. She felt every eye turn toward her as she took Ethan's arm, his tailored tuxedo sharp against the evening light. The whispers started immediately, fragments of "Who's she?" And that's Caldwell's date? But Amara held her chin high, her pulse steady despite the knot in her stomach. This was Lillian Harper's wedding, a stage for Ethan's pride, and Amara was here to play her part. Ethan leaned close, his breath warm against her ear. "You okay?" "They're staring, but you look like you belong here more than any of them." Amara's lips curved, though her nerves hummed. "I'm fine, fancy suit. Just don't trip me on these stairs." She tightened her grip on his arm, her heels clicking up the plaza's marble steps. Inside, the ballroom buzzed with New York's elite, socialites in glittering gowns, tycoons with practiced smiles. A string quartet played softly, and servers wove through the crowd with trays of champagne. Amara felt the weight of scrutiny, the unspoken question of how she'd landed on Ethan's arm. A woman in a sequined dress approached, her smile sharp as glass. "Ethan, darling," she said, air kissing his cheeks. "So brave of you to come." Her gaze slid to Amara, lingering on her gown. "And who's this? Exotic beauty?" Amara's jaw tightened at the word, a subtle jab she'd heard before. Before Ethan could respond, she extended a hand. "Amara Brooks, Ethan's girlfriend. And you are?" The woman blinked, caught off guard. "Cecilia Worthington, a friend of Lillian's." Her tone implied that exotic was a compliment, but Amara let it slide, her smile unwavering. "Charmed," Amara said, her voice cool but polite. Cecilia drifted away, already whispering to a companion. Ethan squeezed Amara's arm. "You handled that like a pro." "I've had practice," Amara murmured, scanning the room. She spotted Lillian near the bridal table, radiant in a designer gown, her blonde hair cascading under a veil. Lillian's eyes locked onto them, narrowing slightly as she took in Amara. "Showtime," Amara whispered. Before they could approach, the MC called for toasts. Ethan tensed, but Amara, sensing an opportunity, raised her hand. "Mind if I say a few words?" she asked the MC, who nodded, surprised. Ethan's eyes widened as Amara stepped to the microphone, glass in hand, the room falling silent. "Ladies and gentlemen," Amara began, her voice clear and confident. "I'm Amara Brooks, Ethan Caldwell's partner. I want to thank Lillian for her generosity in inviting Ethan to share in her joy today." She paused, her smile warm but pointed. "It takes a big heart to bring everyone together, and I know Ethan's thrilled to celebrate this new chapter, especially with someone as accomplished as Victor Langley. To love, to be resilient, and to move forward." She raised her glass, and the room erupted in applause, though Lillian's smile tightened, her composure shaken by Amara's poised audacity. Ethan joined her as she stepped down, his expression a mix of shock and admiration. "That was bold," he said, guiding her to their table. "You just stole the show." "Good," Amara replied, her pulse racing. Let her stew on that. She'd felt the room's eyes on her, some admiring, others judging, but her toast had shifted the narrative. Ethan wasn't here to sulk. He was thriving. As they sat, Lillian approached, Victor at her side. Up close, she was stunning, but her eyes held a flicker of unease. "Ethan," she said, her voice smooth but strained. "I'm glad you came." She turned to Amara. "And your toast was unexpected. I don't believe we've met." "Amara Brooks," Amara said, standing to meet her gaze. "I've heard so much about you. Congratulations to you both." Victor extended a hand, his smile genuine but guarded. "Caldwell, good to see you. And Amara, a pleasure." He glanced at Lillian, sensing her tension. "We should mingle, darling." As they walked away, Ethan murmured, "She's rattled. You were incredible." Amara shrugged, sipping her champagne and just doing my job. "But she's not as over you as she wants to be." She nodded toward Lillian, who glanced back, her expression unreadable. The dinner began, a lavish 5-course affair. But Amara barely tasted it, aware of the curious glances from nearby guests. A woman across the table, Victoria, a friend of Lillian's, leaned forward. "So, Amara, what do you do?" "Besides accompanying Ethan, of course." Amara smiled, unfazed. "I tutor kids at a Brooklyn community center, helping them with math, reading, and dreams. It's rewarding work." Victoria's eyebrows rose, her tone patronizing. How noble. Not many would choose that over other opportunities. The implication hung in the air, but Ethan cut in. "Amara's brilliant at it," he said, his hand brushing hers under the table. "She's changing lives." The conversation shifted, but Amara felt the sting of Victoria's words. She leaned close to Ethan. "They think I'm here for your money," she whispered. "Let them," Ethan replied, his voice low. "You're here for you and your mom. They don't get to define you." The band sang a slow song as the evening progressed, and couples filled the dance floor. Ethan offered his hand. "Shall we? Gotta keep up appearances." Amara took it, her heart pounding as they moved to the music. His hand rested on her waist, warm and steady, and she relaxed into the rhythm. "Not bad, Caldwell," she teased. "You clean up nice on the dance floor." He said, "You're not so bad yourself." His eyes locked on hers. The pretense blurred, the ballroom fading until it was just them, swaying in sync. Lillian watched from across the room, her expression a mix of envy and regret, but Amara barely noticed. Ethan's presence, his quiet strength, his unexpected warmth, was all she could feel. The song ended, and Amara stepped back, her cheeks warm. "We're convincing them," she said, her voice soft. "It could be too convincing." Ethan's smile was slow and genuine. "Maybe it's not all an act." Before she could respond, a guest bumped into them, apologizing profusely. The moment broke, but the spark lingered. As they returned to their table, Amara knew something had shifted. This night was no longer just about a deal. It was about something real, something dangerous, and she wasn't sure she was ready for it. The plaza's grand ballroom pulsed with music and laughter, but Amara Brooks felt the world shrink to the cool night air on the terrace, where she stood with Ethan Caldwell. The wedding reception hummed inside, Lillian Harper's lavish celebration a distant buzz. Amara's emerald gown shimmered under the string lights, and Ethan's tuxedo, slightly loosened at the collar, gave him a rare, unguarded look. Her bold toast, calling out Lillian's generosity with a smile, had left the room buzzing, and now, alone with Ethan, Amara felt the weight of their performance lift, replaced by something heavier, more real. Ethan leaned against the stone balustrade, his green eyes catching the light. "That toast," he said, a grin breaking through. "You didn't just steal the show, you set it on fire." Lillian still reeling. Amara laughed, the sound easing her nerves. "Good. She wanted a spectacle, so I gave her one." She sipped her champagne, the bubbles sharp on her tongue. "But let's be real. I'm here for my mom's surgery, not to play hero. You're getting your money's worth." His grin faded, replaced by something softer. "You're not just a hire, Amara. You walked into that room and owned it, not because of me, but because of you." Her heart skipped, his words landing harder than she expected. She turned to face the city skyline, avoiding his gaze. "Don't get too sweet on me, fancy suit. I'm still deciding if this whole thing was a terrible idea." Ethan stepped closer, his voice low. "Was it? Because when we were dancing in there, it didn't feel like an act." Amara's breath caught, the memory of their dance, his hand on her waist, their bodies swaying in sync, flashed through her mind. She'd felt it too, a pull that blurred the lines of their deal, but she wasn't ready to admit it, not when his world of wealth and power felt so far from hers. "You're good at this," she said, deflecting with a smirk. "Almost had me believing we're a real couple. Who says we can't be?" Ethan's tone was earnest, his eyes searching hers. "I know this started as a deal, but you're different, Amara. You see me, not the bank account or the headlines. That's rare." She turned to him, her guard wavering. "And you see me, Ethan, not just a waitress, but someone with dreams, with a fight. But let's not kid ourselves. Your world's a different planet. I'm not sure I belong there." "You belong anywhere you want," he said, stepping closer. "And I want you here, with me." The air between them crackled, charged with unspoken possibility. Amara's heart pounded as Ethan's hand brushed hers, tentative but warm. She didn't pull away. Instead, she tilted her head, meeting his gaze. "Careful, Caldwell. You're starting to sound like you mean it." "I do," he murmured. He leaned in, and Amara didn't stop him. Their lips met, soft at first, then deepening. A kiss that felt like a confession. Her hands found his shoulders, his arms encircling her waist, the city fading until it was just them, caught in a moment neither had planned. The spell broke when Ethan's phone buzzed in his pocket, sharp and insistent. He pulled back, his forehead resting against hers, his breath uneven. "Ignore it," Amara whispered, her voice teasing but hopeful. He gave a rueful smile, checking the screen. "It's my London office. There's a crisis with a deal. Millions on the line." He hesitated, torn. "I have to take this." Amara stepped back, the warmth of the kiss cooling. "Of course you do," she said, her tone light but edged with disappointment. "Be the big shot." Ethan frowned, pocketing the phone. "I'll call you tomorrow, Amara. I promise. This," he gestured between them. "It's not just tonight." She nodded, her smile tight. "We'll see. Save your empire." He lingered, reluctant to leave, then returned inside to take the call privately. Amara stayed on the terrace, the night air chilling her bare arms. She replayed the kiss, how it had felt so right and real. But his phone, that constant tether to his world, reminded her of the gap between them. She was here for her mother's surgery, nothing more, or so she'd told herself. Yet, the spark with Ethan was undeniable, and it scared her. Could she trust it? Or was it just a fleeting moment, destined to fade when the wedding lights dimmed? Inside, the reception continued, but Amara's thoughts were elsewhere. She glanced at Lillian, now dancing with Victor Langley, her smile polished but strained. Lillian's world, Ethan's world, was one of power plays and expectations, where Amara's presence had already raised eyebrows. She thought of her tutoring kids at the community center, their unfiltered joy when they solved a problem. That was her world, grounded and real. Could she bridge the two? Or would Ethan's life always pull him away, leaving her waiting? As she rejoined the reception, Ethan caught her eye from across the room, and his call was finished. He mouthed, "You okay?" She nodded, but her heart wasn't so sure. The kiss had changed everything, turning their deal into something dangerous, something alive. She'd come here to play a part. Still, now, standing in the glittering chaos of the plaza, Amara wondered if she was ready to step into the role of Ethan's real partner, and what it would cost her to try. Amara Brooks wiped down the counter at the daily grind, the morning rush fading into a quiet hum. 3 days had passed since Lillian Harper's wedding, and the memory of her kiss with Ethan Caldwell on the plaza's terrace lingered like a melody she couldn't shake. Her emerald gown was back with the stylist, but the spark of that moment, Ethan's lips on hers, his words about wanting something real, clung to her. Yet his silence since then gnawed at her. He'd promised to call, but his phone, buzzing with a London crisis, had pulled him away as the night ended. Amara's heart wavered between hope and doubt as she poured coffee, her apron dusted with grounds. Her phone stayed silent, and she tried not to check it. Instead, she threw herself into her routine, heading to the Brooklyn Community Center after her shift. The classroom buzzed with kids, their pencils scratching as they tackled math problems. Amara knelt beside Jamal, a 10-year-old with a gap-toothed grin, who beamed as he solved a fraction equation. "Look, Ms. Brooks, I got it," he said, holding up his worksheet. "You nailed it, Jamal," Amara said, ruffling his hair. "Keep that up, and you'll be teaching me soon." His pride warmed her, reminding her why she'd earned her education degree despite the low pay. Tutoring was her anchor, a world where she belonged, unlike Ethan's glittering realm of chandeliers and whispered judgments. Back at the cafe, her mother, Nora, called during a lull. "Any word from your fancy man?" Nora asked, her voice teasing but gentle. She was still recovering from her heart surgery and was now fully funded by Ethan's payment. Amara sighed, wiping her hands on a rag. Not yet, Mom. He's probably buried in work. Said there was a crisis in London. Mm-hmm, Nora said, her tone knowing. Men like that, their work's always calling. You sure about this, baby? I'm not sure about anything, Amara admitted, glancing at the community center photo on the corkboard. Her with her students, all smiles. That kiss felt real, but his world, it's so different. I don't know if I fit. You fit where you choose to, Nora said. But don't let a man keep you waiting too long, no matter how much he's paying for my hospital bills. Amara managed a laugh. Noted, Mom. But as she hung up, the doubt lingered. Ethan's silence felt like a preview of a life tethered to his empire's demands. That evening, her phone finally lit up with Ethan's name. She answered, her voice cool. 3 days, Caldwell. Thought you forgot how to dial. I'm sorry, Ethan said, his voice strained but sincere, the faint hum of an airport in the background. London's a mess. Contract disputes, millions at stake. I flew out the morning after the wedding. I should have texted. Yeah, you should have, Amara said, leaning against the counter. 10 seconds, Ethan. That's all it takes to say, hey, I'm not ghosting you. You're right, he said, and she could hear the regret. I'm not used to this. To someone expecting me to check in, someone who matters. Can I make it up to you? I'm back tomorrow night. Dinner? Amara hesitated, her heart tugging between frustration and the memory of their kiss. Only if you promise not to vanish again. I'm not here to play second fiddle to your deals. I promise, Ethan said, his voice softening. And Amara, that night wasn't just an act for me. I meant what I said on the terrace. Her breath caught, but she kept her tone light. We'll see, fancy suit. Call me when you land. As she hung up, a text came through. Not from Ethan, but from Lillian Harper. Ethan, it was good to see you at the wedding. I hope you're happy. Can we talk? Amara frowned, forwarding the text to Ethan with a note. Your ex feels chatty. Handle it. She wasn't sure why Lillian was reaching out, but it stirred unease. Was Lillian regretting her choice, or testing Ethan's? The next evening, Ethan arrived at the cafe just as Amara's shift ended, his suit rumpled from travel, his eyes tired but warm. I owe you dinner, he said, holding the door open. There's a pizza place nearby. No chandeliers, just good food. Amara smiled, slipping off her apron. You're learning. They settled into a booth at the pizzeria, the smell of pepperoni and cheese grounding them. Ethan reached for her hand. I meant to call Amara. London was chaotic, but that's no excuse. I saw Lillian's text. I told her I've moved on. For real. Amara nodded, her guard easing. Good. But you need to know, Ethan, I'm not built to wait around. My life, tutoring, my mom, this city, is whole. If we're doing this, whatever this is, it's got to be equal. I get it, he said, his thumb brushing her knuckles. I'm not used to relationships, not real ones. My world's been work, deals, people wanting pieces of me. But with you, I feel like myself, not the billionaire, just Ethan. Her heart softened, but she held firm. Then show up, Ethan. Not just when it's convenient. I'm not signing up for a life of missed calls and apologies. He nodded, his expression serious. I will, starting now. Amara shared a story about Jamal's math breakthrough as they ate, her face lighting up. Ethan listened, captivated, but his phone buzzed on the table. A London number. He silenced it, his eyes on her. Tell me more about the kids, he said. They're why you do this. She smiled, surprised by his focus. Yeah, they remind me there's more to life than bills or fancy weddings. But as they laughed, The silenced phone loomed, a reminder of the world waiting to pull him back. Amara wanted to believe in the spark from the terrace, but doubt whispered, could Ethan's life ever make room for hers? Or would she always be one call away from being left behind? Amara Brooks sat on the worn couch in her Brooklyn apartment, the late afternoon light filtering through the window, casting shadows over the coffee table cluttered with medical bills and community center schedules. Her mother, Nora, was in the kitchen, humming as she stirred a pot of soup, her strength slowly returning after her heart surgery, fully funded by Ethan Caldwell's payment. The memory of their kiss on the plaza's terrace 2 weeks ago still sent a shiver down Amara's spine. But Ethan's 3-day silence after the wedding, followed by their tense pizza dinner, perplexed her. His world of high-stakes deals and constant calls felt like a chasm she wasn't sure she could cross, even if her heart urged her to try. The intercom buzzed, pulling her from her thoughts. "It's Ethan," his voice crackled through the speaker. Amara smoothed her jeans, her pulse quickening as she buzzed him up. When she opened the door, Ethan stood there, his tailored sweater contrasting with her modest living room, a leather folder tucked under his arm. His green eyes were bright but nervous, a look she hadn't seen before. "Hey, fancy suit," she said, her tone teasing but guarded. "No crisis pulling you to London today?" Ethan grinned, stepping inside. "Not today. I promised to show up, didn't I?" He glanced at Nora, who waved from the kitchen. "Smells fantastic, Nora. Can I steal Amara for a bit?" "Go ahead," Nora said, her smile knowing. "But don't keep her too long. Soup's almost ready." Amara led Ethan to the couch, her curiosity piqued by the folder. "What's this? Another contract to make me your fake girlfriend for some gala?" He chuckled, but his expression turned serious as he handed her the folder. "Open it." She flipped it open, her breath catching at the sight of legal documents, a deed, blueprints, financial projections. Her eyes scanned the title, Brooklyn Community Learning Center. "Ethan, what is this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I bought a building," he said, leaning forward. "A vacant community center in Brooklyn. I want to turn it into a learning hub for kids. After-school programs, tutoring, arts, whatever you think they need. You'd be the director, Amara. Complete control, a staff, and a salary that lets you quit the cafe. This is for your dream." Amara's hands trembled as she flipped through the pages. The numbers were staggering. Millions invested in renovations, endowments for operations. "This is insane," she said, her voice tight. "You can't just drop millions on a stranger." "You're not a stranger," Ethan said, his gaze steady. "You're the woman who walked into the plaza and turned it upside down with a toast. The woman who makes me laugh, who sees me for me. This isn't charity. It's an investment in what you can do." She shook her head, setting the folder down. "It's too much, Ethan. People will talk. Say I'm only here because of your money, that you're some savior fixing my life. I've spent my whole life proving I don't need handouts." Ethan's jaw tightened. "I know how it looks, and I hate that it might feel that way. But this isn't about saving you. It's about giving you a platform to do what you're meant to. Teach, inspire, change lives, like you're already doing at the community center." Amara glanced at the photo on her fridge, her with her tutoring kids, their smiles wide after a science fair win. Her teaching dream was always out of reach, buried under bills and practicality. This could change everything, but the weight of Ethan's wealth, his world, loomed large. "What if people think this is you buying me?" she asked, her voice soft but firm. "At the center, some parents worry about outsiders changing our neighborhood. They'll see this and think I'm selling out." Ethan nodded, his expression thoughtful. "I get it. Money comes with baggage, assumptions, judgments. But you can shape this, Amara. Make it the community's, not mine. Set the terms, hire who you trust, and keep it rooted. She looked at him, searching for any hint of control or ulterior motive, but found only sincerity. You believe in this, don't you? In you, he corrected, his hand brushing hers. I've seen how you light up talking about those kids. This is your shot to do it on your terms. Nora appeared, leaning against the doorway, her eyes sharp. Sounds like a good man, Amara. But you know what I always say, trust your gut, not just your heart. Amara exhaled, her mind racing. She thought of her tutoring sessions, Jamal's grin when he mastered fractions, and the parents who trusted her to guide their kids. This center could be a lifeline for them, but it tied her to Ethan in ways that scared her. I need to talk to my mom, she said finally. Alone. Ethan nodded, standing. Take your time. I'll be at the cafe tomorrow if you want to talk. He left the folder on the couch, and the door clicked softly behind him. Nora sat beside Amara, her hands folding over hers. That's a big gift, baby. Why are you hesitating? It feels like a fairy tale, Mom, Amara said, her voice cracking. But fairy tales don't last. What if I take this, and it's all tied to him? What if we don't work out, and I lose it all? Nora's eyes softened, but her tone was firm. As a nurse, I faced folks who thought I didn't belong in their hospitals or neighborhoods. I built my place anyway. This center, it's not about him. It's about what you can do with it. Set your rules. Make it yours. Amara nodded, her resolve strengthening. You're right. If I do this, it's for the community, not just me, and I'll make sure it stays that way. That night, Amara drafted conditions. The center would be community-run, with a diverse board of local parents and educators. Funding would be locked in for 5 years, independent of her relationship with Ethan. By morning, she called him. I'm in, she said, her voice steady. But we do it my way. Community first. No strings to us. Deal, Ethan said, his relief palpable. Dinner tonight to celebrate? Somewhere small, no chandeliers. She laughed, the tension easing. You're on, fancy suit. Amara felt a surge of hope as they hung up, tempered by caution. Ethan's gift was a bridge to her dreams. But his phone buzzed in the background of their call, a reminder of the world that could pull him away. Could she build this center and a future with him without losing herself? Amara Brooks stood in the skeleton of the Brooklyn Community Learning Center, the smell of fresh paint and sawdust filling the air. Scaffolding lined the walls, and contractors hammered away, transforming the vacant building into a hub for kids like those she tutored. Her clipboard held blueprints and schedules, her pen marking approvals as she navigated the chaos with a quiet authority. It had been a month since she'd accepted Ethan Caldwell's gift, the deed to this center, and while the project fueled her dreams, his absence weighed heavily. A crisis in Singapore had pulled him away for weeks, leaving their budding relationship stretched thin across time zones. Her phone buzzed with a video call from Ethan, his face appearing on the screen, shadowed by exhaustion. Hey, he said, his voice rough, a Singapore skyline blurring behind him. You look like you're running the show there. Amara managed a smile, leaning against a half-painted wall and trying to. The contractors just finished the classrooms. Sent you the plans. Any thoughts? Ethan rubbed his eyes, a stack of papers visible on his desk. They look great, Amara. I trust you on this. It's your vision. Her smile faltered. She'd wanted his input, a sign he was as invested in this as she was. I'd still like your take, Ethan. This is our project, not just mine. He nodded, but his gaze flickered to his laptop. I know, and I'm sorry I'm not there. This deal's a mess, potential fraud, missing funds. The company could lose hundreds of millions if we don't fix it. Amara's chest tightened. It was always the company, always a crisis. I get it, she said, her voice steady but strained. But I'm making decisions alone here, Ethan. I'm doing this by myself. His expression softened, guilt flashing in his green eyes. You're not. I'll be back soon, I promise. I miss you, Amara. She admitted, I miss you too. But the words felt hollow. She ended the call, her heart heavy. The center was her dream, but Ethan's absence made her question if their connection could survive his world's demands. At the community center later, Amara ran her tutoring session, guiding a group of kids through a science experiment. Their laughter lifted her spirits, but a parent, Mrs. Carter, lingered after, her expression wary. This new center, Mrs. Carter said, folding her arms. Folks are talking, Amara. They're worried your rich boyfriend's money means gentrification, new buildings, higher rents, pushing us out. Amara's jaw tightened, the concern echoing her fears. I hear you, she said, meeting Mrs. Carter's gaze. That's why I'm setting up a board, local parents, educators, people like you. This center's for us, not some developer's agenda. I'm making sure of it. Mrs. Carter nodded, her skepticism easing. You're one of us, Amara. We trust you. Just don't let that money change you. The words stung, but Amara held firm. It won't. I promise. As Mrs. Carter left, Amara felt the weight of her role, not just as director, but as a bridge between her community and Ethan's world. She needed him to understand that, not just a voice on a screen, to be present. That evening, Amara sat with Nora in their apartment, the aroma of her mother's cornbread filling the air. Nora, stronger now post-surgery, studied her daughter's face. You're quiet tonight, baby? Ethan's still in Singapore? Amara nodded, poking at her food. Weeks now. I love him, Mom, but I'm curious if loving him means always coming second to his work. Nora set down her fork, her eyes sharp. As a nurse, I worked nights and missed your school plays. Your dad never complained, but I saw the strain. Love's not enough on its own. You need balance. Have you told Ethan how you feel? Amara shook her head. He's under so much pressure. I don't want to add to it. Nora said feelings don't wait for convenient times, and her voice was gentle but firm. You're building something real here. The center. Maybe a future with him. Be honest, Amara. If he's the man you think he is, he'll listen. Amara sighed, knowing her mother was right. The next night, she took a deep breath during their video call. Ethan, we need to talk. I'm proud of the center, but I'm doing it alone. Your work, it's always there, pulling you away. I need to know if there's room for us in your life. Ethan's face fell, and his surroundings were a stark hotel room. You're right, he said, running a hand through his hair. I've been so caught up. I didn't see how it's affecting you. You're not second, Amara. You're everything. I'm working on wrapping this up. 2 more days, Max. When I'm back, we'll figure this out together. She searched his eyes, wanting to believe him. I hope so, Ethan, because I'm not built for a life of waiting. I know, he said, his voice thick. I love you, Amara. I'll show you I mean it. Amara felt a flicker of hope as the call ended, but doubt lingered. The center was thriving. Her kids were learning, and her mother was healing. But Ethan's world was a whirlwind that could sweep him away. At the center the next day, she led a meeting with community leaders, outlining plans for tutoring and art programs. Their enthusiasm bolstered her, but Mrs. Carter's warning echoed. Could she keep this project true to her roots while tied to Ethan's wealth? And could their love survive the strain of his absences? Or was she building a dream that would always come second to his empire. Amara Brooks stood in her Brooklyn apartment's tiny kitchen, the aroma of her mother's pasta recipe filling the air. The table was set for two, candles flickering against the worn wood. A rare night off from the community center's whirlwind of renovations. Ethan Caldwell was due any minute, his flight from Singapore landing hours ago after a grueling month apart. Their video calls had kept their connection alive, but Amara's confrontation about his absences lingered, her heart caught between love and fear that his world would always pull him away. The learning center was thriving, classrooms painted, tutors hired, but she needed Ethan present, not just a voice on a screen. The doorbell rang, and Amara smoothed her blue dress, the one Ethan loved, before opening the door. He stood there, suit jacket slung over his shoulder, his green eyes tired but bright. "God, I've missed you," he said, pulling her into a tight embrace, his warmth chasing away her doubts for a moment. "I've missed you too," Amara murmured, melting into him. She led him inside, where the candlelit dinner waited. "Made your favorite. Mom's pasta. No chandeliers, just us." Ethan grinned, setting his briefcase down. "Perfect." They sat, and he recounted the Singapore resolution. A partner's fraud exposed, millions saved. Amara updated him on the center, her voice alive as she described a mural the kids had designed. But her smile faltered when she noticed his phone, silent but looming on the table, a reminder of the crisis that could come next. "You're quiet," Ethan said, reaching for her hand. "What's wrong?" Amara took a breath, her fork pausing. "I love you, Ethan, but these weeks apart, they're hard. I'm building this center, making choices alone, and I need to know if we can find a balance. Your work, it's always there." His face fell, guilt shadowing his eyes. "I know I've let you down, being gone so long. You're not second to my work, Amara. You're everything." He stood, rounding the table to kneel beside her, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. Amara's heart raced as he opened it, revealing a diamond ring. Elegant, not flashy, exactly her taste. "Amara Brooks," he said, his voice thick. "You've changed me, shown me what matters. Not money or deals, but love, honesty, you. I want to build a life together, a real one, with a home, maybe kids, all of it. I'm restructuring my company and delegating crises to be here with you. Will you marry me?" Tears pricked Amara's eyes, her fears colliding with joy. She'd imagined this moment, but the weight of his promise, to prioritize her, felt monumental. "Yes," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Yes, I'll marry you." Ethan slipped the ring onto her finger, standing to pull her into a kiss, deep and tender, sealing their commitment. When they broke apart, Amara laughed through tears. "You're full of surprises, fancy suit." "There's more," he said, retrieving his briefcase. He handed her a folder, legal documents outlining a new company structure, with a leadership team to handle daily operations. "I'm still CEO, but won't be the only one putting out fires. This gives us time for us." Amara scanned the pages, and her heart was swelling. "You're serious about this?" "With all my heart," he said, his hand cupping her face. "I want you and your mom with us. A real home, wherever you choose." She nodded, overwhelmed. "Nora will love that. But I'm keeping the center community run, Ethan. It's not ours. It's theirs." "Agreed," he said, his smile warm. "Your terms, always." They celebrated with dinner, the pasta cooling as they talked about a future together. A brownstone, a small wedding, Nora's laughter filling their home. But as they cleared the plates, a knock interrupted. Lillian Harper stood at the door, her presence unexpected. I was in the neighborhood, she said, her smile hesitant. Heard about your engagement. Congratulations. Amara invited her in, sensing a shift in Lillian's demeanor. Over coffee, Lillian opened up, her polished facade cracking. Marriage isn't what I thought, she admitted, her eyes distant. Victor's great, but I'm still figuring out who I am outside the spotlight. You two, you seem authentic. I'm happy for you, Ethan. Ethan squeezed Amara's hand. Thanks, Lillian. We're building something different. Lillian nodded, leaving with a quiet goodbye. Amara felt a pang of empathy. Lillian's vulnerability made her less the villain, more a woman searching for purpose. But as they closed the door, Ethan's phone buzzed. A Tokyo number, urgent. His face tightened. It's a deal gone wrong. I need to fly out tomorrow. Amara's heart sank, the timing cutting through their joy. Tomorrow? We just got engaged. I know, he said, pulling her close. It's one meeting, 2 days max. I'll be back, and we'll plan everything. Wedding, center, all. I promise. She forced a smile, nodding. Okay, but this is what I meant, Ethan. Your world doesn't stop. He kissed her forehead. It will. I'm making it stop for us. As he left to take the call, Amara touched her ring, its weight grounding her. She loved and believed in his promises, but his phone buzzed in her mind. The center, her kids, their love. It was all within reach. But could Ethan truly balance his empire with their life together? Or would she always be one crisis away from watching him go? Amara Brooks stood in the newly painted Brooklyn Community Learning Center, the scent of fresh varnish mingling with the buzz of anticipation. The once vacant building now hummed with life. Classrooms lined with books, art supplies stacked for after-school programs, and a mural of vibrant faces designed by her, tutoring kids adorning the entrance. It had been 3 months since Ethan Caldwell's proposal, and though his ring sparkled on her finger, their life together was a work in progress. His 2-day Tokyo trip had stretched to a week, and while he'd returned with apologies and a renewed commitment to delegate, Amara felt the familiar tug of his world pulling him away. They planned the center's opening tonight, but a brewing disagreement threatened their harmony. Ethan arrived. His tailored jacket swapped for a sweater, and a folder of event plans was under his arm. Hey, he said, kissing her cheek, his green eyes warm but tired. The center looks incredible. You've done wonders. Amara smiled, gesturing to the mural. The kids did that. It's theirs, not mine. She led him to a folding table cluttered with notes. We need to finalize the opening event. I'm thinking of a block party, local food, music, and families. Keep it community-focused. Ethan nodded, flipping open his folder. I like it, but I was thinking bigger. A gala. Invite some donors. Get press coverage. It could secure more funding and make the center a model for others. Amara's brow furrowed, her clipboard tightening in her grip. A gala? Ethan, that's your world. Fancy suits, champagne, people who don't know these kids. This neighborhood doesn't need outsiders gawking at us like we're a charity case. He frowned, caught off guard. I'm not saying it's charity. A gala could amplify your work, bringing in resources for more programs. And make folks here feel like they're on display, Amara countered, her voice firm. I've already got parents worried about gentrification. A block party says this center's for them, not some elite crowd. Ethan leaned back, running a hand through his hair. I hear you, but exposure matters. I'm trying to help, Amara. I know, she said, softening, but holding her ground. But this isn't about your connections. It's about trust. Mine with this community. They need to own this, not feel like it's their project. He studied her, his expression shifting from frustration to respect. Okay, Block party, it is. But let's add a small donor pitch. Local businesses, community leaders. Balance your vision with some stability. Amara nodded, a compromise forming. Deal. But I'm picking the music. None of your classical stuff. We're going with jazz, maybe some hip-hop. He laughed, the tension easing. You're the boss. Later, at their new Brooklyn Brown, the garden of Ethan Caldwell and Amara Brooks' Brooklyn Brownstone bloomed with spring color, roses and lilacs, framing a slight wooden arch draped in white fabric. 50 guests filled folding chairs on the grass, their laughter mingling with the soft strum of a jazz trio. Amara stood beneath the arch in a simple ivory gown, her curly hair loose, a radiant smile lighting her face as she faced Ethan. His tailored suit was understated, his green eyes locked on hers, brimming with joy. It was their wedding day, a far cry from the lavish spectacle of Lillian Harper's event where their story began. The Brooklyn Community Learning Center, now thriving, had opened a month ago, and today marked the culmination of their unlikely journey from a fake date to a love neither had foreseen. Nora, Amara's mother, sat in the front row, her eyes misty as she watched her daughter exchange vows. Her health had steadied since her surgery, funded by Ethan's initial deal, and her presence in their new home had brought warmth to their days, though not without adjustments. The officiant's voice rang clear. Do you, Amara, take Ethan as your husband, to love and cherish through all life's challenges? I do, Amara said, her voice steady, her hand squeezing Ethan's. The ring on her finger, the same one from his candlelit proposal, gleamed in the sunlight. Ethan's vows followed, his words fervent but straightforward, promising to prioritize their life together, to return to her no matter where his work took him. As they kissed, sealing their union, the guests erupted in applause, the jazz trio swelling into a lively tune. At the reception, tables spilled onto the brownstone's patio, adorned with Nora's cornbread and local caterers' dishes. Lillian and Victor Langley, among the guests, approached Amara as she mingled. Lillian's smile was genuine, though tinged with introspection. You've changed him, she said, glancing at Ethan, who laughed with a group of community center parents. He's lighter, happier. I spent years searching for that in him, but I think you found it. Amara nodded, touched by her candor. We're good for each other. He pushes me, and I keep him grounded. Lillian's openness, a shift from her wedding day tension, revealed a woman grappling with her path, making her more human than her rival. Victor clapped Ethan's shoulder. Congrats, Caldwell. You've built something real here. His words carried a warmth that surprised Amara, a nod to a rivalry softened by time. As the evening unfolded, Amara took the microphone to thank the guests. This center, this community, this day, it's all because we chose to build together, she said, her voice carrying over the crowd. Not just Ethan and I, but all of you, parents, kids, neighbors. This is our home, our future. The applause was thunderous, and Ethan joined her, his arm around her waist, pride in his eyes. They danced under string lights, swaying to a slow jazz number, the world narrowing to just them. Happy? Ethan asked, his voice low, his hand warm against her back. Amara replied, happier than I thought possible, her cheek against his chest. You? You're my home, Amara, he said, his lips brushing her forehead. The center, this life, it's more than I ever knew I needed. She laughed softly. The billions don't hurt, though. He grinned, pulling her closer. There's my girl, keeping me humble. As they danced, Amara's mind drifted to their journey. From that first meeting at the Daily Grind, where she teased his boring coffee order, to her bold toast at Lillian's wedding. to the center's block party opening, where her speech had rallied the community. Ethan had kept his promise, restructuring his company to delegate crises, and his trips were now shorter and fewer. But Amara knew challenges lay ahead. Just last week, a contract dispute had pulled him to Chicago for 2 days, and Nora's traditional cooking had sparked a playful kitchen clash in their brownstone. They'd resolved it over a shared meal, but it reminded her that their life would always balance his empire's demands with their shared dreams. Later, as the last guests departed, Amara and Ethan stood on the brownstone steps, the night air cool against their skin. Nora had gone inside, giving them a moment alone. "So," Ethan said, his arm around her waist, "was it worth it? Saying yes to my crazy cafe proposal?" Amara pretended to ponder, her eyes sparkling. "Let's see. A husband who gets me, a home with Nora, a center changing kids' lives? Yeah, I'd say it was worth it." She paused, her voice softening. "Your mom would be proud, Ethan. I feel her in you, in this." His eyes glistened, touched by her words. "She'd have loved you because I do." They kissed, a promise of forever. Their unlikely love born from a deal, now the foundation of something real. Challenges would come, business calls, community pressures, the dance of blending their worlds. But as they stepped into their home as husband and wife, Amara knew they were exactly where they were meant to be.